and everybody can do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, panelists. I will have 2 questions for the panelists, then we'll open up for questions from the participants. One to Solomon Kala. How do we bring the voices of the learners, all students, or in that matter, trainees with disabilities, to the space of policy and decision making? Thank you.
Learners make a very big constituency of the key stakeholders in education. And you see, as you are implementing curriculums, learners are they are the one going through the processes in which you are now testing what you have planned for them. But you see, their voices need to come out. When you see exams being given to learners, and then you give results, the way they perform is an indicator. Either they are part and parcel of the system, or they are just being taken for the sake of the system. Learners need to prove they are part of the system. Currently in Kenya, we have the CBC curriculum. That is competence-based curriculum, where a learner is given first preference. In fact, even the continuous assessment, you involve the learner at every level. I know those who are even teaching at the university, the continuous assessment of a learner gives them confidence even to pass in the last or end examination. Involving a learner is very key. Practice giving material to a learner. In Kenya, through private innovations, we have a very big project that is giving assistive devices to learners with disabilities. It's a 7-year program, and every institution, every learner is supposed to be given an assistive device. Digital initiatives are being involved with the learners. Learners, like even those who are using, for example, Braille, we are now going to digital Braille, and learners are being given, in fact, devices that are able to use digital Braille. This initiative, that is a 7-year initiative, is a boost to our learners in Kenya. We are able to have learners, in fact, being able to interact freely with computers, and for instance, the job access with the speech, screen reader, and other screen readers are available for learners with vision impairment, and they are able to access content. They are able to even communicate, take exams, and do very well. They are able even to also go through websites. And I want to say, through the National Council for Persons with Disability in Kenya, our persons with disabilities, after registration, they are also given opportunities when it comes to employment. They are given tenders that are given the option that affirmative for children, for women and persons with disabilities. I want to say that Kenya is moving, and we are hopeful that more private For instance, Kenya Society for the Blind is owned by the Act of Parliament, and it's an organization that also is a stakeholder in education for learners with visual impairment, including those with the low vision, where devices are given a program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we have combined the two questions that I was trying to ask. Maybe with the other panelists, maybe briefly about access to digital tools, and then I open up for questions from the participants.
Let me just say one little thing. I really want to appreciate my colleague from Kenya when he says every learner is able to access a device. I think we should really give the Kenyan government an approach, because this should be the way to go. As much as the devices are very expensive, but they're also going to work as a pen and a book to a disabled child. So let the cost not put us down. We should actually look for this money as different governments to ensure that every learner accesses a device that they are able to use in school effectively to learn like the rest of the others. I just want to add something little from Uganda, that yes, we're also using quite a number of devices, but we have not reached that level of one-to-one. We may have 1 to 10, 1 to 5. That means that when others are writing or doing the work, the others have to wait until this one's finished, and then they also use the device. So this is a very big challenge to us, but we are working on it to see that enough resources are allocated, and then these students are able to access. And there are quite a number, the range of them, with different functions. Let me stop at that and then get the questions from the other people.
Thank you. A good clap for our panelists, please. That is not enough. You need to give more than that. Thank you very much. Now we go to the questions from the panelists, and let's limit because of time. We'll have only 4 questions.
Yes. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I'm Catherine from South Sudan. I want to say thank you so much for the panelists, for what you have said. And my question is going to both of you from Uganda and Kenya. Before I go to my question, first of all, I want to say is South Sudan, South Sudan have ratified UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability last year in February. And UNCRPD became into force in March this year. So, as I know that implementation is not easy, and of course, South Sudan is still facing a lot of barriers, persons with disability, in terms of learning, assistive devices, all that is not available much. So, my question is for both of you, how can you advise as South Sudan, your message to South Sudan, how we can able to reach the extent where you are as Kenya and Uganda? How can we speed up so that people with disability will access, will come in the level where you are now? Thank you so much.
Another question, another participant? Please, we just take 4 only.
Everyone, thank you. Dr. Nabovisa is my name once again. It's not a question for me, but I just want to compliment what Madam Caro talked about in employment. People with disabilities, I want to inform you that employers these days are always interested in these 3 things. It's an acronym, CAP, K-A-P, knowledge, attitude, practice. Yes. They assess all these 3. How you're doing with them will determine whether you get a job or not. Exhibit the best in all these 3 aspects, trust me, you won't lose it. An example is myself. When I was doing internship at Kagando, on the surgical ward, surgery, I made sure that I always be swift in my activities. I know I have a problem of mobility, I can't hurry, but then I won't ask for sympathy that because I can't hurry up, then I will be excused for coming in late. Get up early so that when time for work reaches, you're already at the site.
Thank you.
When I finished, he wanted to get me a job at the hospital, like being retained. But then there was no position. I was lucky, he was working in another hospital. He gave me a recommendation, and that's how I got my first job immediately.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Patrick Suli from Uganda. By the way, in Rwanda, it's written something. It's new, but it's moving fast. Anyway, I want to know a question about these devices that we give learners. I'm wondering if the learners actually get adequate training in using them, that's one. But very important, once they leave school, are they enabled or do they have these devices or others that they can use after so that they don't become again illiterate when they leave school? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let's pick it up from Uganda. We can give to a lady. Yes, and then front there is someone from either India.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Praveen. I'm representing DSO. My question is, it's a comment actually. Firstly, congratulations to all the panelists. Madam from Uganda, you talked about special needs education, and somebody did talk about mindset. So it is time that we change the nomenclature of special needs education, because the more we call us people with disabilities special, we are being made different. So I'm not different, I'm not special. Yeah, I want to be part of this society. So there are models in Ethiopia and Kenya where these special schools then become resource hubs and they can support other inclusive education regular schools. And Caroline, to your point as well, it's really good that how teachers can be trained at the pre-service and in-service processes. So my request and humble to this forum is can we make a mind shift in our own attitude by removing the word special. Thank you. We want to be included.
Thank you very much. That is a very strong comment. The last one, then we can ask them to answer.
Okay, thank you. I wanted a comment from the panelists about how they are trying to improve the skills of our people with disabilities, especially the women, to ensure that they can earn some living in terms of writing.
Thank you. I think we can go back to the panelists. Then from Uganda, you can answer the question on adequate training.
Okay, thank you so much. I can see the questions are many. Let me start with our friend from Sudan. Yes. She wants us to advise on how they can also get to where we are. I want to say one of the most important things is first of all begin with domesticating the policies, because once you have domesticated them, you have your local policies, then you will hold government accountable to those policies that you have. The other one is do a lot of advocacy and awareness. When you see in this room, we have so many partners, so many development partners, organizations of persons with disabilities that are so vocal, and these are holding government accountable to see that provisions of persons with disabilities are undertaken. Because without them, they never assume that government understands what disability is. Then the other one is about data information. Because if you're speaking, you're demanding, for how many people are you demanding services? And who are those that haven't been reached? So have information, have the data well collected, so that when you're demanding, you're talking from an informed point of view. The other one is about devices. Someone has been asking that when they leave, if the devices are there, they are being used in school, and when students leave or learners leave, what happens? Obviously, they do not go with those devices. The devices we are procuring or having there for the schools, even most of those that even partners, because even our partners have also provided in some of these schools, like UNICEF, like Sense International, and many others. They have also been supporting government to provide devices to schools. But these devices remain at school. And if you may recall in what I said, I was talking of 1 device to 10, 1 device to 5. So how do you really start letting them get out of the school, and yet other students are still there and they need to use them? But I know in the future we may have enough, and where we are today, we will be there for so many years. And I know in the next maybe 10 years, things may be different because we are all committed. Then my friend from VSO, yes, I take note of that. The mindset, this one of special needs and all that, we can have another deeper conversation about that. But I take note of your concern. Then finally on women, somebody said women. I want to tell you that we have so many programs under Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, and they are doing a lot of work in the area of women, the area of youth, in the area. It's not that they were not given an opportunity to come and speak here, but you can have a one-to-one. What I know is there are quite a number of programs for women. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you have answered everything. I don't think you need to just get one from the far end for purpose of inclusivity, and then we call it a day.
Thank you very much. My name is Kamsina Ronald. My question goes to the Commission of Special Needs. One is training. What are you doing about the training of teachers for special, for in these inclusive schools? I studied education at Mary University. The way about special needs education is just one and very limited in quantity and even skill. As a child who started with inclusive schools, I changed from secondary to another school, but my mathematics skills were limited. One, because the teachers who were trained in these colleges don't know how to teach mathematics to children with visual impairment, and I'm affected up now. Two, on planning and budgeting for education. Why is it that the ministry, you plan for special needs education as at the last end, even when things have already been implemented, when we change the curriculum from 4 subjects for A level to 3 subjects, and we had to do ICT. We waited to special needs children with visual impairment did ICT after 5 years when others were already doing ICT. Why do you plan for students with visual impairment or even special needs last budgeting for devices? They are not there in schools. The ministry abandoned that to NGOs. Why do you just budgeting 10 million per year for these schools can do this, but also important training. What are you doing about it for the teachers?
Thank you. Very strong question. Thank you very much. Back to the panelists for an answer, and then we'll grab just.
Oh, thank you so much for those observations. I know you've been walking this long journey with us as a country, because your observations are indeed correct. But if I may respond to a few of them, one on the curriculum, yes, like you have said, the trend has been we plan for the others and special needs at the last end. But I want to say last year, this year, we have changed the way we are planning. And we have not just changed, but because there have been so many voices, maybe even yours has been inclusive, coming from all corners of the country saying, why do we plan for learners with disabilities at the end? Even when they are procuring books or anything, they say, let us first of all do for this, and when it comes for learners with disabilities, they say, we shall first of all finish for this and then come to those. And many times as they come to those, the money is even finished. But I want to say for the past 1 year and this year, things have changed. We are planning concurrently for that too. The other one is about, though the money may not be enough, and you know we've always had this complaint of saying that special needs things are very expensive. If we're adapting a book, it's, you know, everything is expensive. But the government of Uganda has been committed and they are really trying to put in resources, and the planning is now concurrently. The other one about the teachers, I want to leave Chambogo to answer. But in case she does not touch the new teacher policy, which is now housed with us, I also add that. But Chambogo take on, because they're the ones who have been training teachers. It hasn't been Ministry of Education and Sports Training. So Chambogo.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, as an institution, Chambogo has trained a number of teachers. But as I said earlier, I've had an opportunity to interact with various levels of learning, especially here in Uganda. For a long time, teacher training has concentrated on primary education. All of us here have attended secondary school education, and we very well know that we have a variety of courses undertaken at that level. For some time, we've had a gap in there. And it's unfortunate, because in some of the facilities, education institutions, you find that people, for instance, with visual impairment, who have gone through the units for the blind, are the ones often coming back to provide a service to the young ones who are now in the specific units. As an institution, we are working with Ministry of Education to try and get a functional strategy to empower the secondary school teachers and ensure that they effectively deliver to increase or facilitate or enhance access to education for the learners at that level.
Thank you.
When it comes to university level, many academic institutions are coming on board. Of course, Chambogo led in that with a specific entity handling persons with disabilities. Many institutions have benchmarked with us, but I'm glad that things are changing. Even in Makere itself, you had a recent run where you're raising funds to enhance access to university education for the learners with special needs. Together, I believe we can, and all of us should work together to make sure that things happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. First house, just one second.
Let me benefit from this space. I want just to make advocacy on two points. It's not a comment to what has been said. We said about assistive devices. There are some persons with disability who are forgotten somehow. I think to persons with albinism. When we are talking about assistive devices, on my side I think the lotion that they use, it's one of the necessary thing they need. All of us as partners, when we are thinking of providing assistive devices, think also to children and persons with albinism, because they need that lotion in the space where we are, where there is too much sunning. The second, as African networking, we are talking about policy, but how many countries has ratified the ADP, African Disability Protocol? I know that it's not far away for UN CRPD, but it has an African context. I I would like just to remind you, please, in advocating, ratify, our country should ratify this protocol. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think that's a good finishing.
Maybe, Mr. Titum, I want to encourage that education will always be built and depend on contemporary comparison, say, education. I would want to encourage that if you get opportunity to visit any one of our countries that are even represented here, try to visit and learn more about what is happening in education. And those of you who may get some time to come to Kenya, I would want to welcome you so that you can also learn some of the stages which we are going through, because education is dynamic, is evolving, and the practices are there. There are those that are succeeding, and there are those you can also emulate and practice in your country or participate. Different institutions in Kenya have given an opportunity to all. This you may find that at different levels, there are those who can go to university, there are those who can go through technical and vocational institutions, and they can benefit a great deal. And there are those who can also start their own.
I wish that we stop please there because of time.
Yes, there are those who can start their own businesses. So it's good to go. You're welcome. You can learn from other countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A good clap, please, for us. Thank you very much, Caroline. Thank you, Sarah, Feston, and Solomon. This has been a good session. A big clap for them as they drop down, please. And welcome back our moderator. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, the panelists, for a wonderful expose that we have enjoyed over the last 1 hour. We have another panel discussion that's coming on. My brother Prosper from the depot is going to be chairing this one. We'll be cautious of time to make sure that the loss of time doesn't keep our flowing into other future plans. So at when it hits 11:10, I'll switch the microphone off. No, I'll be cautious.
I was going to say that is unfair. Thank you so much. Congrats, Kaisu, and I'm going to moderate the next session. And we're going to look at justice, choice, and power. And without wasting any more time, the discussants are Ms. Musola Katabiti. Kindly step forward. Dr. Sam Utalo. Kindly step forward. Ms. Beatrice Busu. And Ms. Olive Namtebi. And finally, Mr. Kabale Alan. So, I will just give 3 seconds for each of the panelists to introduce themselves. I purposely did that because I want each one to bring themselves the way they understand it better. I might bring it in a wrong way. So I will begin with Madame Beatrice. So, thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Busu Beatrice. I have been in disability advocate for over 20 years, working both in the civil society and the government institution. I'm now running a small-based, community-based organization in Maracha district, which is in the northwestern part of Uganda. Thanks being here with all of you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really humbled and honored to be part of the panelists. My name is Amsola Kasikiti. Zafo, Uganda Federation of Organization of Disability from Zambia. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Most welcome to this conference in CBR. I am Lutalo G. Sam, doctor, and I am deaf. I belong in the deaf community, and so that is the persons with disabilities, but I'm also an academician. I'm happy to be here and have two interpreters to support me in this process. Thank you.
My name is Olive Namtebi. I am the Executive Director at Albinism Umbrella, a local national NGO that advocates for the rights of persons with albinism in Uganda and Africa as a whole. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kabale Alan. I'm from Support Disability Uganda. I'm a lawyer and author. Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to give kindly 5 minutes to each of the discussants, and we shall spare some 3 minutes for the questions and 1 minute to summarize. So, justice, power, and choice are interconnected concepts that play a crucial role in shaping an individual and societal outcomes. I want to begin with Madam Beatrice Kuzu. What does justice look like for persons with disabilities in the areas like health, education, and employment?
Thank you very much. I believe that as persons with disabilities, when we talk about justice, we are talking about our rights, which is inherent. It is not. It's not something which we feel that it should be us to ask for it, but it should be known that we really deserve it. So, what we mean by justice, for instance, in health, is that we should have access to health services. We should have, for instance, the physical environment in the maternity ward, in the administration section, in the wards, in the other wards, okay, apart from the maternity ward. I've started with the maternity ward because I'm a woman. So, and in most cases, those maternity wards are really not accessible. And you know the question which people always ask, that now who is this man who has sympathized with this woman? Not knowing that it is actually a right as a woman to be pregnant, not so? Yes. Yes, so that is one. But also, apart from the physical accessibility, we think that it is also our right for the health workers to serve us, to look at us as human beings first, not the disability. And when they are talking to us as a patient, the talking should be through us, not through the person whom we have come with. But in most cases, maybe except for the deaf who use an interpreter because of the nature of their disability. But if possible also, we would feel that the sign language interpreter should actually not come in between the deaf person and the patient, because some of the issues to do with the health are really confidential. You wouldn't want a second party to get it you want that discussion to be between you and the doctor, just as other people do. So we are also feeling that it should be a right for the deaf person to talk directly with the health worker, not through the second person, if possible. Then in the area of education, many things have been talked about, but we feel first of all, it is a right for a child with disability to go to school, which in most cases is not the case. Many times, because the parents hide away the child is not able to get an opportunity to go to school. Or because the parent doesn't know information about where these schools exist, they are not able to take the child. But then, when the child is in school also, there are some rights which are supposed to be respected. The child should have the required teachers, the required scholastic materials, the school environment which is accessible, the attitude of both the children and the learners themselves, the people who you are running with. They should respect your right as a child.
Thank you so much. Let's go to play in Zambia and see what is the picture like in terms of justice, choice, and access for persons with disabilities in the Zambian context.
Thank you very much. Very, very critical and interesting question. When you talk about justice, choice, and power in relation to persons with disabilities, first and foremost, we know that those are very, very vital aspects we are talking about in living a hope of complete life. But when it comes to persons with disabilities, there are barriers that hinder their access to justice, power, and choice. So when you come to Zambia, I'll start by saying I think Zambia is one of the lucky countries because in terms of addressing issues of disability inclusion, started especially when the CBR, CBID program came in. And I will specifically mention the CBR that I participated heavily starting from 2009. It was a two-twin approach. Now with this two-twin approach CBR, CBID program that was started in Zambia through NAD, it started from the ground. There is teaching people on inclusion, which includes the power of persons with disabilities, the rights of people with disabilities, and also from the top, starting from government and other stakeholders. So that's what I'm saying, a two-twin approach. So when we are talking about issues to do with inclusion, the right to have a holistic life as a person with disability, when you talk about the right to participate in leadership and others, when you talk about the right to have a choice of your own. So people are being educated from the grassroots level, in the village, in the community, and also government coming together. So that already gives you a clear understanding, where are we today, considering the situation that we are talking about. Because of these trainings with partners, stakeholders, and the networks that are there, at the moment, there is some great progress. I can say there is some great progress. When I say there's some great progress, definitely disability is not easily as a barrier to look at how best you can address it. There are some certain areas which are still gray, but at least when you go in the community, when you talk about the rights to persons with disabilities, they themselves who have disabilities have been educated on the rights. Then stakeholders, you're talking about the partners, religious people, they have also been educated. And the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the Act that is being reviewed. At the moment, we're also talking about the Act of the Mental Health Act that is also being reviewed. All these issues have been educated to people. But still, the fight goes on. Now, when I talk about power is participation in politics. We still have a challenge for persons with disabilities getting there, but because of the CBID network that is on the ground, in every district, we have spread down where, when you come to talk about the wide development committees, in the communities, in the villages, leaders have ensured that in those committees, they have to be persons with disabilities represented. And that has also come from government. to ensure that people with disabilities in every community on the ground, they are represented, they represent themselves, to speak their voice, to speak their words. So there's that part. But still, we are getting there, especially when it comes to on the level of parliament. I think Uganda has been my inspiration when I hear of women and disabilities being in parliament and stuff. We haven't gotten there, but at the moment, I'm talking about having women and men with disabilities that are passionate. They're even, we have a program called Women's Lobby where they are empowering and encouraging people, women with disabilities and non-disabilities into politics. And our women with disabilities and also men with disabilities are part of those areas. That is when you talk about power. We still have a long way to go, but we still have people getting there, having interest and learning to getting into politics and speak on your own. But don't forget, we have also the underrepresented, who we also need to look at how do we ensure as Zambia, as a country, deaf, blind people, intellectual disability, mental health, people with mental health disabilities, and other underrepresented. We always remember them. That even when we are discussing about power being into leadership, how do you bring that person with mental health disability on medication to speak about their rights? We also do that. When we come to choice is a great, okay. When you're passionate about something, you don't know that time is running. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Sam Lutalo, what do you think are the most significant challenges persons with disabilities face in exercising autonomy and making informed choices in the areas of health, education, employment?
Just a minute, moderator. I really wanted to inform you that I come from Chambogo University, which is actually much represented, and I am head of department, the Department of Hearing Impairments and Language Interpretation Studies. So I belong to the disability world, I belong to the academia. Yeah, and as a country, we've had a number of achievements. And in the area of justice, for example, the challenges that we face as persons with disabilities is the esteem that we have. Do we have the capacity to go and advocate for the rights? Do we have the environment available? Is the environment even of justice accessible to us for us to be able to access the justice? Do we have the right to choose which kind of decision or justice we must have? Do we have a right to choose which kind of education that you must have? Now, when we get into accessibility, the concept of the accessibility aspect is how do we make choices, how do we access health when there is no concept of, the provisions are not there. You must have the sign language, for example. I come from Chambogo University, for example. If you have stakeholders who are not empowered, who are not knowledgeable in the field, how do you anticipate or how do you expect us to access the services? So it is important that the stakeholders, and I'm talking about the managers, for example, many of us here will agree with me that many times when you're talking about the concept of accessibility, they attach it to financial implication. They will tell you we do not have funds. But then what is it that we need? Mothers here with disability, when they go for antenatal, when they go to the labor ward, as Madam Beatrice Guzu said it, every time they feel it is a burden. It is not a burden. We must have a choice, but have they given us the room to have a choice? So the services that we desire require us to be empowered as persons with disabilities, but also the institutions that we actually have. It is true that as a country we've just had so many tremendous achievements. We have the policies, we have so many policies and legal regulations that the government has actually, wrote, actually enacted. But what is key is that all the stakeholders should be able to work together, and then we can easily find a better solution.
between persons with disabilities and non-disabled persons in the healthcare and public life.
Thank you very much, moderator. What must governments do? It's on. It's on. Thank you. I'll just speak slowly for interpretation and reasonable accommodation. One thing I want to begin with is to appreciate the government of Uganda. And I know that the disability movement is, I think, about 20 years old. We have made leaps and bounds, representation in parliament, from the parish level. That is great. One thing that must be done, and we all as CBR practitioners and everything that we do, is to create awareness. I come from a constituency where it is a lot of stigma and discrimination, very high levels of ignorance, and then the lawyers say ignorance is very best. We are all equal under the law. But how do we then look at justice, look at choice, look at all our rights being upheld if people still claim they don't know? We've been to courts of law, and as a country, we are battling with accessibility, we are battling with reasonable accommodation, and it all goes to, do people know that we need these services? Yes, someone speaking for my community, people with ability, a judge, a teacher, a health worker says, are they there? Is it one, is it two? You've heard people confess that a health worker didn't want to inject a person with ability, thinking their skin is different. Now, it behooves me for someone who has a scientific background not to know that, you know? So for me, creation of awareness is everything. Ignorance is very expensive in the 21st century. And it's this information age that people incidentally claim those things. So what do governments do? Speaking for my own country, we have the policy, we have the regulation, we have all this, but the implementation is not done. When you create awareness, let there be the will to fund these proposals that we want. And it's not too much that we're asking for. Creating a ramp, having a sign language interpreter. I want to borrow the example from, I forget which country. It could be Zambia, where the curriculum has been changed. Look at that kind of intervention that the nurse will already know. If I have somebody who is blind, this is what I do. If I have someone who is deaf, they have the basic skills of communication. For me, it was awareness, the willingness to implement what you have set out to do. Two, people with disabilities, we need to rise up. We need to rise up and claim our space. We have been stigmatized, and I look at my colleague who's saying, you know what, we've been in this space for long, but still some of the disabilities are neglected, are left behind. We're in the space of SDG saying, leave no one behind, but begin with the facts behind. Disabilities like albinism, short stature, epilepsy, spina bifida, unless people get to know that in society we have people of different needs, then we will not be able to do that. So as governments, as legislators, we need to put down action to implement that which will bring everybody on board. We will go this far until the last person is going to. We can't claim the economy that, whichever middle income class we desire to do when we have a big population of our people left behind.
Thank you. Finally, presentation, sentencing, and installation.
Thank you, Prosper. Justice is broad. We have 4 types of justice. There is what we call distributive justice, There is what we call procedural justice, retributive justice, and restorative justice. Let me first focus on distributive justice. This is justice that determines who gets what. And when you look at justice, of which determines who gets what, we also look into equity, fairness, and needs. As a practitioner, legal practitioner, we have encountered quite a number of challenges in ensuring that different people, including people with disabilities, access justice. I was sorry to bring you something personal. I was from court recently, and I felt, that's why you see my leg like this. I fell on the steps because of the structures. So I have a colleague called Chandia Emmanuel, is a lawyer. One time I had gone to court to practice, and the court session was up on level 3. So he could not proceed, he could not represent the client. But another day, he had gone to court, wanted to ease himself, but the toilets were not accessible. And he doesn't, because he has testified this, he ended up having bad experience that day. So, justice to people with disability has to be approached in a fast way. It's not a one-way thing. As Mrs. Kuzu said, you can't talk about justice and live out rights. And rights are interrelated, interdependent, and they should be enjoyed as a whole. When you take away one right, if I may say it like that, you have taken away all other rights. So it's a challenge where stakeholders, particularly government, because in the rights system we have the duty bearers and rights holders. And as the government is the duty bearer, the role of the government is to ensure that the rights holders' rights are enforced, they are supported to enjoy their rights. So it's been quite a challenge, but also let me speak about this briefly. Power. You see, power and authority are used synonymously. And power is the ability to have one's will done or carried out despite the resistance of others. The question is, as people with disabilities, do we have power, have things done, even when other players are against what we want to do? We have talked about representation. How effective is the representation? Our leaders, are they being heard? Are they being given a platform to speak out? And when they speak out, do they implement what has been raised by them? That's for you to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we clap for the panelists? We have heard from the professors, all the persons seated in the panel are persons with disabilities. And all what is being discussed have affected them in one way or the other. Now, I want to open to the plenary. I want to receive about 2-3 comments or questions, and then I give them opportunity to summarize. Yes. Yesterday we had about 3 microphones. Where have they gone? Hey, yes please. But straight to the point. For sure.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jero Kawamu from Foundation of Persons Affected by Prophecy. Thanks to the presenters, more especially to the sign language interpreter. Kindly clap for him. He was interpreting very well. Thank you so much. My question goes to all the presenters. You have talked well on access to care, but very little on politics, especially mainstream politics. As persons with disabilities, as OPDs, what can we do to ensure that there is maximum participation of people with disabilities in mainstream politics? For example, for the case of Uganda, you see that we have 5 members of parliament for persons with disabilities. The main point why they came on were like a training ground for them to go and participate in other elective or mainstream politics. But most of them, unless you die, but they have lived a long time. So now, what can we do to ensure that we participate in mainstream politics? Because for our people with disabilities is not working well. Thank you.
Next, give the microphone to the other lady. Yes.
Morning, everyone. My name is Colin Kinga. I'm a client of a stakeholder person in 40 years. And I'm on different boards that Sense International, USEC, and others.
Can you speak louder?
Yes. I want to appreciate the government, especially Uganda. They have done a lot for the disabled people. We have as parents and as disabled people. We are saying the government should do this and that. But we are the government to tell them what we are not getting right. They put in policies, but in fact they are not implemented. Someone there saying the challenges is what when you are going to toilet, when they are going to schools and this and that. So I call upon us all partners and the disabled people bring out the issues clearly that we are facing in disability movement. I can tell you one challenge or two how to share this.
Briefly, because of time.
Okay. I locked my child in the house to go and work because I had no caretaker, but my also really go back. Another thing is that I've stopped giving my son medication because I cannot afford it. And this is affecting many parents outside there. And many children have died or they have become more disabled because of that. So it is us to bring out such an issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Julie CBID Africa. I work for Special Needs Quality Assurance and Monitoring Initiative. I want to appreciate the panelists and the moderator. My comment is not a question, it's a comment. I want to appreciate the people there, but also a call to action for all of us. The issues of inclusivity should be our everyday business. It should start right from our homes before we look for the government to help us. And again, for all of us as we continue to engage, even with the Ministry of Education, even with the teachers, all training institutions, they should start from the lowest of the classes to educate them, help the children to know that in our society, we are differently abled, and there are these kinds of children.
And I think to be more intentional, all that information should be included right from preschool, primary, basic, up to all the levels of education, so that we don't wait for people to become leaders to start thinking about issues of inclusivity. So it should be our everyday practice as we engage with everyone around us, as we model the curriculums, we should include this kind of information. Thank you very much.
Yes, take the microphone to the other gentleman.
Thank you very much. I'm Ratu Panapalasarai from a member of Kasese, a Uganda Landmine Survivors Association coming from Kasese. Yes, my question was directed to the lawyer. Yes, we also need justice because Uganda is one of the countries in Africa which first signed the Mine Ban Treaty, agreeing that it will also fulfill the Mine Action Codes. And unfortunately, it has already fulfilled to put into action, therefore. But the victim assistance core is not yet very well implemented. And I don't know whether it needs justice or any other way. And I request the lawyer to see how we can push up and see that victim assistance is implemented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Service Commission, where different local governments were asked to review their staffing structures. And in the structures, before we had CBR officers at the district level. But most of these positions have since been traded off for probation and welfare officers. Some are being taken over by community development officers who have little or inadequate knowledge about CBR. How prepositioned are we as CBR actors to ensure that government takes consideration of this gap? Two, I want to thank my senior colleague in the legal profession who mentioned about accessibility of court premises, which is a very big challenge. But also from our perspective as responders to disasters and emergency operations, there is a challenge with evacuation. How best can we preposition emergency responders or persons dealing with disasters to evacuate persons with disabilities, considering the approaches that we have taken as CBR actors or as humanitarian workers? Because this is something that I feel needs to be addressed, especially when we are responding to emergencies. Lastly, is about access to information in early warning and anticipatory actions. Uganda is one of the countries that is faced with climate-induced disasters. And in every operation, we usually conduct gender and diversity analysis to inform the responses. Unfortunately, most of the people that support these operations have little knowledge in the area of disability inclusion. So I wanted to request, especially those in academia, probably to help us and review their curriculum to ensure that they bring on board these issues such that the people that we produce from the academic institutions are able to have those skills that will complement the services of humanitarian workers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think let's first give the panelists to respond to those concerns before we take on more. So I hope we'll be noting.
Participate in mainstream politics. Personally, in 2021, I contested for member of parliament at Kamu South. But some of the challenges I faced is people were asking me, are you also going to represent us? People without disabilities, they were asking, do you also want to represent us? The second question, you have your own slots. Why do you come for ours? Another thing I was facing was the attitude. We cannot be represented by a person with a disability. So, one, we need to do a lot of sensitization and awareness raising to address attitudinal barriers in the communities. Second is to build capacity of persons with disabilities in leadership, to empower them to go for these positions. Because we have had some people with disabilities who are representing constituencies. The likes of Babadi, yes? Yes, Babadi and others, they are representing constituencies, and so many are at the local level, not in positions of disability. So capacity building, awareness raising are very important. Secondly, someone asked about victim assessment. Yes, it's a justice issue. As I said, justice also has to do with procedure, how things are done. They have to be impartial and consistent. So I think there needs to be some kind of assessment done in an impartial way. So that goes for about. Someone asked about evacuation. In Uganda, we have the law called Occupational Health and Safety Act. This one deals with emergencies in such areas. And also we have a policy on disaster, something to do with disaster. But also it goes about, along with also the training of those who are giving such services. For example, we have the traffic department in Uganda. I think you can collaborate and you see how best such emergencies evacuation can be addressed. Lastly, I think that's it. Other folks respond to other questions. Thank you.
Let's be brief. Yes, Oliver, let's come.
Thank you very much. I just want to add something to what Joel has said. How would people with disabilities engage in mainstream politics? Just up your game. This is a competitive process. We have moved from the sympathy models, you know, what disability was from the medical model and all this. We are now playing on level ground. We are looking for equity, we're looking for equality, stand up for the right and say, I am equal. Alan did it. He may not have succeeded the first time, but I hope you won't give up. Please don't give up. So there is no shortcut to it. If we are the pitch, the rules are the same, get to the level and compete as favorably as you can. Otherwise, then we'll get to, you know, they're telling you the side of disability. I also wanted to respond to the gentleman from Kasese about positions, and I don't want us to really just dwell on what Uganda does. We want to really get to scale up. If these positions are being taken away for various reasons, we all know, I don't think there's a government today that says, oh, we have it all, and our budget we can, you know, give whatever the SDG says we should have 80% of the GDP. Many are struggling, right? What do we need to do? We need to be innovative. Can we have the roles of CBR, CBID taken by other officials who are there? Otherwise, we can't keep fighting and say, I want this position for, you know, this person with disability. It is us. I mean, if the rules of the game change, let's be very innovative. Let's change with the times and be adaptive to what the situation demands. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I equally want to comment about the politics.
I talked about the esteem. I think it's entirely about how we look at ourselves as persons with disabilities vis-a-vis the other persons. And it is also a choice. Where do you want to see yourself? Do you really want to, are you a politician? Or where do you want to be? But also finding yourself into the, involved in so many other aspects. You realize that the structures that we have, we do not have too much in the politics, but in any organization or institution you are, you can be a representative in any way. And you can equally be a council representative, as I am. So it is important that we get to participate. And I really want to use my example. For the first time in Jabogo University, I stood for leadership. I competed to be a dean. Yes, I didn't go through, but I competed. Yes? So it is not something that you have to give up. For representation in the council, I have equally stood, and so I am a member of council. You know, the highest organ of the university. It is important that we get in ourselves, get to believe that you can be there, and then push it. And then about the disaster issues. For us as institutions, it is important that, because you realize that there is a lot of issues with accessibility of information. For deaf persons, deaf-blind community, we do not have too much. You know, nothing much has been done in accessibility. But for us as an institution, or institutions of higher learning, what we would emphasize, it must not be curriculum, but we have postgraduate programs. Now, we should encourage our students to do a lot of research and actionable research, where we can come up with recommendations and partner with different stakeholder, MDAs, and then we can easily find solutions. And then the curriculums can come on board. But the easiest way is how we disseminate the findings and then go to the society, not remain into the walls of the universities. Yeah, and the landmine, I think, really, yeah, the Landmine Association. I really do not have too much information, but it all takes us back again to the accessibility. And I really want to dwell on to the deaf society, the deaf community. When we have only interpreters appearing on TV for 1 hour in 24 hours, so you only wait for information, listen to information in 30 minutes, because in 1 hour you have actually breaks and advertisements running through. Some of this information we don't get it. Now, when you have a phone, like I do, we spend a lot of data than our ordinary counterparts. So, in the concept of inclusion, we really need to do a lot to make sure that we can. And incentives should be given on some of these courses. Thank you. I think that's what I need.
The others have said, and I'm going to, first of all, in all these areas that we've talked about, we have to look at the policies that we have. I think both as persons with disabilities and non disabilities and all the stakeholders will look at the policies. How are the policies that are in existence addressing issues to do with persons with disability participation, full participation and involvement in all these areas? So when it comes to politics, what is my policy in the country talking about issues of participation? We have the UNCRPD that has got different articles that support this. So we have, I think for me, we have the participation, full participation of persons with disabilities. And then when we look at the policies, it's also as persons with disabilities, how do we work together? I always believe in inclusion and saying in homes we live together. So in all these stakeholders, when you talk about preparedness, how are we involved, starting from the grassroots up to the top? How are persons with disabilities involved in these committees, in these different sectors? How do we ensure, as a nation, as a government, as stakeholders, that in everything that we are doing, we are mainstreaming disability? In everything that we are doing, we are talking about inclusion, leave no one behind. We are talking about nothing about us without us. How do we ensure that in these areas we have persons with disabilities, including the underrepresented, including those with deafblind, being involved through one way or another. I think that is one way we can look at all this. When you look at disaster risk reduction, the most vulnerable are persons with disability, and especially those who are underrepresented. I can also mention, also when it comes to information communication, how do we ensure that when we are planning, especially now we've got a lot of disasters happening in different parts of the world, in Africa, when you are planning for these disasters, how do we ensure that you have plans starting from budgets and other activities? How do we ensure that we have plans for persons with disabilities? And as people with disabilities, how do we ensure that you are there? Don't give up. Don't sit back. Sometimes there are challenges because there are a lot of barriers, structural, systematic, and attitudinal barriers. Those they break sometimes when things are hard, but never ever give up. Take your step. Let's try and encourage people with disabilities, because sometimes confidence is broken because of the way people are treated. If we can look at encouraging, treating, teaching persons with disabilities so that everyone thinks I am just like any other person. I am not special. We are all special in here. Who's going to say I'm not special? But we have specific needs, individual needs. Let's look at the individual needs of persons with disability to ensure that they participate in every developmental aspect in society. And that's why I love CBR and CBID, because it gets to the ground and involves everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, finally, I just want to comment on the issue of CBR, CBID, people who are trained in that area. As Olive said, that maybe that position is no longer there, but what we can do as advocates now is to ensure that CBR or CBID is included as one of the job requirements for the CEOs and people in the community development. Because at the moment, I think, for example, for Uganda, Ministry of Public Service doesn't recognize it as one of the requirements. So we still have a lot of work to advocate that CBR should be one of the job requirements for community development workers. So that then the training in Chambergo is not irrelevant. Because we shall make people not to pick up that course because they know that they are not being employed. Then secondly, I wanted to say that we are all talking about justice, power and choice. And at least we have legal instruments that are in place internationally and even in our countries. So we should advocate for all countries to ratify some of those international instruments like the African Disability Protocol, like the CBID. If there are countries here who have not yet ratified, let them ratify and even domesticate it. That's the only way we can realize some of these justice and rights that we are advocating for. Without that, we cannot do much. I know laws are good because they are basis for us to advocate for our rights. Otherwise, I want to thank all people who have appreciated our discussions, and I thank you all for listening to us.
So finally, is someone from Aleptom? Let's give him or her the opportunity. Yes, someone raising their hand from Aleptom district. Unmute and speak. Aleptom.
Thank you so much, Moderator. I just wanted to add one thing on the perspective of the leadership at a whole level that has been stated there. You will look at the leadership that we are looking at, the impact of the common stability on the ground. You will elect the person who represents you in any level at the local council or in the district. So in that leadership, you will find out that the capacity of the person who is particular institution even single day. Now, I am trying to bring is that if some of the collaborators, the partners can come in after doing the elections of all leaders at all levels, they should step in to build the capacity of our local leaders, of our leaders, so that when it comes to decision making, they speak out the voice of people whom they have already elected in any position. This is what I did a gap in as a leader at the local level. So thank you so much. That is where I wanted to put across to the sponsor.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Colleagues, I think we have to bring to an end this discussion, and we would really like to appreciate all the people. First, beginning with our panelists, can we give them a round of applause? Okay, just a minute. Olive, a minute.
Yes, a minute. Thank you so much. I just wanted to conclude that in whatever recommendations we do, two big things that we need to tackle is the mindset and logistical. And mindset is everything. It's awareness. I can tell you I'm an author, and in the bid to change mindsets, I've written a book called The Red Diamond. As you go down on the CBM platform, please pick a copy, know the truth, and pass it on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alan, as well, is an author, but I don't want to give him to talk. He's a lawyer, he's a politician, he's an author, he's everything. So members, what is very key is that we need to build the capacity of our people. We need to raise awareness of our people, but of all, we need to make informed choices and support our people to make informed choices so that we can get justice from wherever we are. We need justice right from home, community, places of work, and everywhere. So thank you so much for participation. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much. Let's take opportunity of this conference in network and to support us. Thank you.
And now close to the panelists. Do we have participants from Uganda? Child. Show hands. Okay, sizable. Now, we're going to give a hand clap. Asante sana! Karibu tena! Yes. We finally know how to clap, okay? The minister was struggling, right? I was wondering, why is she calling for Asante sana? Thank you very much. Friends, there is just a lot of things to share, and if you notice, if you're looking at your watches and the clock, we are many minutes behind schedule. But I want to give you an assurance. We shall do everything that we set ourselves to do. But there is one thing that we are very likely to miss.
In Uganda, we will hear from Mugabe Frank, who will present this model to us in details. He is also an online participant. Objective 4 is to explore how to improve that. We'll conclude with a presentation by Olive. Olive, are you ready, please? Could you join us and sit, please? So, we will start with the presentation. each of which will last approximately 15 minutes. Following this, we will move on to a question and answer session. We will now proceed with our interventions. So, let us welcome Mr. Leonard. We will present us with a topic on the importance of Christian leadership in creating inclusive environments and integrating children with disability into the community activities.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in front of you is Leonard Munani, a teacher by profession, a special needs teacher, and we have been told not to call them special, with a background of teaching for 10 years, but with 27 years in the field of disability. Finally, a founder and executive director of an organization called Kuhenza, which means Upenda in Kiswahili, love in English, for the children with disabilities. Thank you. Yeah, our main discussion today, we usually look at 3 main areas, and this is empowerment or awareness, as well as education and medical intervention. But for today, I'm going to look at how we equip influential Christian leaders to support inclusion, care for children with disabilities in low-income countries, Kenya being one, Uganda also being one, and many, many others. What we are trying to do, or where we work from Kilifi. Kilifi is a border, or borders Kenya, or borders Uganda, from Kenya, the Kenyan side. And we are at the coast region. Now at the coast region, what happens is disability perception is a really issue. Of our organization, Kuhenza for the Children was founded in 2007 and registered as an NGO with the coordination board in Kenya. What is our mission? Our mission is to transform harmful beliefs and practices surrounding disabilities to those that improve children's lives. There are 2 key words there, and that is the harmful beliefs and the harmful practices. What is our vision? Our vision is a full integrated society where people of all abilities have access to health, education, and a loving community. And that is what I call full disability inclusion. As I've said, we are in the coast of Kenya, in a county called Kilifi, which has a lot of superstitions. I know some of you, particularly those who come from Kenya, you have heard stories, sad stories of children being killed because of having a disability. Now, let's have an overview. Superstitious beliefs about disability. Our people in Kilifi County do believe in demons. That demons cause disabilities. And this is something that we are holding to so much that changing the perception becomes very, very difficult. Others are also still believing in witchcraft and the jinns. Today, if you are seen even having a child with a disability, whether you went to school, you are a doctor, you are a professor, still people will think you are using the child to get riches. And this is so sad. Then there's another group again which believes that it's God's punishment. You are punished by God to to have a disability or to have a child with disability because of the wrong things you did. What's the problem? We are saying over 1 billion people with disabilities are excluded worldwide. However, children with disabilities are the most marginalized group, which I believe you agree with me. Now, stigma connected to local superstition are the biggest problem. And this leads to very, very serious situation. Neglect, abandonment, abuse, as well as murder. As I stand here, still there are cases of children in our county of Kilifi, they are going to be killed for having been born with a disability, though they will do it secretly. And this is a big, big concern to us. What is our strategy? Our strategy is to work with the community leaders. And I want to mention who are these community leaders. Our community leaders are the pastors or the Christian leaders. We have the traditional healers. We have the government leaders. We have the community health promoters. We have the imams and the parents of the children with disabilities themselves. Those are our local community leaders. But for the discussion today, I'm going to dwell on the church leaders. Church leaders are very important in every given community. But we are saying in Kenya, more than 82.5% of Kenyans identify themselves as Christians. Churches have been seen to be very key institutions for care in their communities. Churches are doing a wonderful job. But let's see what will happen when it comes to children with disabilities. Many believe disability is from a curse or curses, including the pastors in our community. This has led to abuse and healing practices. Today, our major challenge in Kilifi are the pastors. Instead of taking a child to the hospital, they will keep the child in the house praying for them that he will get healed of the disability. And it's a very common practice within Kilifi County in Kenya. Many utilize traditional methods to heal the child. But I want to share something here which is sad, but I want you to believe that it is happening in Kilifi County. Pastors, what do? They end up having sexual relationship with the mothers of children with disability, saying that is a form of cure. The same with another group, and these are the traditional healers. They take advantage of mothers who have children with disabilities. It's sad, but that is what is happening in some places. Okay, influential Christian leaders. Influential Christian leaders influence community beliefs systems, and I want to explain. Beliefs are made by the community after many, many years. The stigma and discrimination comes from our leaders, be they pastors, be they traditional healers, be they the parents themselves, because our beliefs are passed from one generation to another. And that is why we are saying if you use the community leaders, particularly those who are influential, they can change the belief systems in the country or in the area. They also take action when made aware of the needs of the children. when they are given the true causes and treatments connected to disability. The leaders need to be informed. What are the needs of these children? What are the causes of the disability? And what are the treatments available? To me, if you can give the true causes about a disability to a community leader, you have opened his or her mind. Or else, he'll keep on sticking to what he had been told by his parents or grandparents. And why do we use community leaders? Very interesting. The pastors are found in every corner of our country, Kilifi. Even the smallest part or the remotest part, you will still see a pastor. And a pastor are very influential people. They are trusted. And above all, pastors are so much used to volunteer work. And that is how we take advantage to make sure that we engage them. How do we engage them? We call pastors to a one-day workshop, about 25 pastors, and the session of the recruitment is locally led. What do I mean here? When we are going to have a pastor's workshop, we identify a lead pastor who is going to do the invitation, look for the venue, apply for the meals, and everything that will take place during the workshop. So we say they have, or the lead pastor is in possession of whatever is going to take place. Our workshops are very respectful and discussion-based. The one-day session is all discussing. No one is told you are wrong, otherwise it's a discussion. Then it's also community-centered action planning. At the end of the workshop, they come up with their own action plans, depending on where they come from. They could be 25, but they are coming from a different regions, so they will sit as a group and come up with their action plans. Now, we have the delivery strategy. We have an open forum for Christian leaders to share their individual beliefs and actions connected to disability. In that workshop, we put them into groups and let them discuss what do they believe are the causes of disability. And you hear funny stories from pastors. Then, some of them, they could get these answers from the Bible, that the causes of disability can be traced from the Bible. But we always ask them, which is the right way? Because even in the Bible, there are verses that are supporting people with disabilities. Like John 3:1, it says, when Jesus saw the blind person, he asked his disciples, who did wrong? And he said, none. So when you are using those verses, the pastors feel like, yes, I think there's something we need to change. And then the discussions there are usually facilitated. When we stand there, we are only facilitating. They are in control. There is nothing like me saying, I know everything. No. They come up with a discussion. They lead this discussion themselves. However, we highlight the biological text related to disability. What is the cause of Down syndrome? What is the cause of cerebral palsy? As far as the biological causes are concerned. And this becomes very helpful to them to change their perception. But at the end of the day, we also present action plans. As I've said, they come up with action plans. And the action plans are connected to 3 areas: education, health, inclusion in the community. So when they are going to their specific groups, they are guided by the 3 areas. What can you do when you get to your home as far as health is concerned for children with disabilities, as far as education is concerned, and as far as inclusion of children with disabilities is concerned? Now, data collection. We collect data in 2 ways. One, before we get into the workshop, the participants do what we call a survey, a pre-survey. They answer questions about their beliefs before they go into the training. What do you believe are the causes of disabilities? That's just an example of the question, but there are many questions. They answer the questions, we give the answers, then we now get into the training. After the training, we now do another survey. They answer questions again. The other way we also collect data, what we call evidence action, within 6 months. The participant who has left there will leave with the action plans, and one of them is to give a talk in his church, a disability talk in the church. They also identify children. They refer children. They give talks in public meetings or public forums. Even in federal ceremonies, they give talks about the rights of children with disabilities. They also form parent support groups, and so many others that are listed, and you can see them at my back. Now, let's see the impact of the work we do. We have included in this chart other groups of leaders that we train. Those are the traditional leaders, the government leaders, families impacted by disabilities. And this is what we found as the results. With the 8 workshops for pastors, with a total of 216 participants, when they did the pre-survey, this is what happened. 173 of the participants had changed their minds. 43 still had a problem in changing their perception. So for those who had changed their perception, we had a percentage of 75. Traditional healers, we had 3 workshops with a total of 70 participants. 70 of them still had problems. We had 35 who changed their perception, giving us a percentage of 50%. Government leaders, and these are the chiefs and all the others from the government. These people do not have much problem, because 124, we only had a very small number, or 0 in their minds. They still had the same perception, which was the right way. Now, families impacted by disabilities, we had 8 workshops of 193, 124 had changed, 97 remained with their perception, giving us a total of 44% for those that had changed. When you move further, we can now therefore say, if you are looking at the information, 73% of our workshop participants believe in superstitional causes and treatment for disabilities when surveyed at the beginning of our workshop. At the beginning of our workshop, that's the percentage we are getting. But when we take all the community leaders we are training, we are getting that after the workshop, 67 of all the participants with these incorrect views reported no longer to believe in those superstitious beliefs. 73% of our participants, and that is a total of 439 individuals, worked to improve the lives of children with disabilities in their communities. In conclusion, respectful, facilitated discussions lead to cultural transformation and benefits for families impacted by disabilities, leading to a truly inclusive society where people of all abilities have access to education, health, and loving communities. Thank you.
Please give him a big round of applause. Thank you very much. So, now we will continue with the second intervention. We are honored to welcome Glory, Ago, and Barbara Ngea. Their presentation will provide us with valuable insights on how communities of practice can strengthen inclusion and support sustainable development. Are you there? Glory, welcome.
Thank you very much. This is Ago Glory, and I will be talking to you all the way from Cameroon. I'm so happy to be joining you online and to have already followed the very interesting presentation. I'm going to be presenting on the potentials of communities of practice for disability inclusive development. This is a research, a systematic review that we conducted, and I'm happy to share with us the findings. Are you all seeing my screen, just to be sure?
Okay.
Yes. Good.
It's okay.
Okay. Okay. So the social problem, which I think we are gathered both in Uganda and globally to try to address, is the fact that inclusion of persons with disabilities is still a huge problem in Africa. And as the first presenter has already highlighted, in Africa especially, there are a lot of negative traditional beliefs against persons with disabilities. And we are moving towards a world of inclusion, but inclusion is still far-fetched. A lot has been done, yes, but a lot still needs to be done. So then, what are some of the strategies that we can still continue to use to see that we are able to address this social problem, the exclusion of persons with disabilities, so that they can be able to enjoy their full right? And so we did a research on communities of practice. We will see in the next slide what communities of practice are all about. But we were trying to look at how and under what conditions can communities of practice contribute to disability inclusion. And so I think as I'm presenting, you can start reflecting how you can set up your own community of practice, or if you already have, how can you harness the communities of practice to bring in ideas from different angles to help solve the problem of disability inclusion in your context. Communities of practice, these are organized groups of people. They can come from different backgrounds. They can come from different interest areas. But what binds a community of practice is that they share a concern for a particular issue. And as we are talking, it could be the issue of the exclusion of persons with disabilities. You can have a group of people who actually are concerned and they actually interact regularly. So it's not just a one-time event, like we say, okay, now we are in Cannes, which could be like a sort of a community of practice, but a community of practice needs to interact regularly to gain knowledge and advance learning related to a specific field. And so, it is not just merely a club of friends or a network of connections or a WhatsApp group where people just maybe throw in anything, but it has to be organized. So in this research, we conducted a systematic review on communities of practice, specifically around disability issues. So there have been many communities of practice research, but we wanted to know those around disability issues and what their findings have been and how, whether they could have the potential to contribute to disability inclusion. So we actually did a systematic review where we were able to look at, identify 4,502 records. From there, which we screened using some inclusion and exclusion criteria, and we finally settled on 20, which actually met our inclusion and our exclusion criteria. And so from there, we used a logic framework to be able to classify our findings with regards to the communities of practice that we were reviewing. And in our analysis, we use qualitative analysis, and we use both the deductive and the inductive analysis, which means in the deductive, we use the logic framework. We wanted to frame it within an existing framework, but for inductive, we mostly use our common sense to be able to fish out the findings. So what did we find out? Now in the studies that we did, we saw that studies on communities of practice have been largely done in the developed countries. In developing countries, we could only find 2 studies of communities of practice. South Africa, 2, and the rest, you will find that they were mostly in the global north. And so, which is telling us that research on communities of practice in the global south is very limited. We don't know whether it is that the communities of practice are not existing, or it is simply because maybe they are existing but they have not been researched. So in the communities of practice, we saw that there have been different issues that the community of practice have been addressing, issues on inclusive education, health and rehabilitation, social inclusion, livelihood and employment, and they were all different categories, but the main category of impairment that majority of the communities of practice were looking at were intellectual impairments. And I think that also aligns with the reality that intellectual impairments usually at times they are very challenging impairments to address, and then you will find that people come together to share their ideas on how to be able to address the most challenging issues that they come across with. So summary of our findings in accordance with the logic network. So we found that communities of practice usually they use certain inputs to undertake certain activities which contributes to certain output and eventually to short, mid and long-term outcomes. So under the inputs, we saw that the communities of practice, especially, of course, time for the members coming together is very important, but also commitment, motivation, and then specialized knowledge. And then for financial, so paid time for some communities of practice whereby members needed time out of maybe their work to be able to attend to meetings. There were also some materials, resources, and these inputs now were used to be able to carry out different activities through workshops, discussion, student assemblies, excursions, sometimes training, and then also research. And this brought about outputs like the development of tools and practices that would enhance disability inclusion. And the outcome in the short term was increased connection among members and peer support, increased knowledge and practice on disability inclusion, as well as the increased commitment. In the middle term, we saw outcomes like successful inclusion of learners with disabilities in mainstream school, equity in teaching practice among teachers with and without impairment, and then in the long term we could see policy changes that came about as a result of the practices in the communities of practice, and as well as disability mainstreaming in the work of some major NGOs. So what were the gaps that we identified in this systematic review? It is that long-term outcome on target beneficiaries beyond the research period is not known, because during the studies that we actually did a review, we could only review what was already published. So beyond that, that is not known. Then the aspect of intersectionality in all the papers that we studied, they were not talked about. So none of the papers went to look at the different identity factors of the members and to see how maybe in one way or the other they would have influenced the outcome of the community of practice. And there's limited focus in sub-Saharan Africa, which calls for us, to research more on communities of practice, but also to establish even more communities of practice as a way of solving the disability exclusion problem. And so the conclusion and recommendations from that is that communities of practice, they actually have the potential to address challenges faced by people with disabilities and contribute to disability inclusive development. You will agree with me that usually no one organization can solve this problem. No one cadre can solve this problem. No one specialization can solve the problem. And so it requires that people who share this common concern of disability exclusion, of exclusion in development interventions, that we come together, meet regularly, to be able to contribute ideas that can solve the problem of disability exclusion and contribute to a disability inclusive environment. Communities of practice should be established and implemented in consideration of the inputs, activities, output, outcome, and eventually impact. And so, when establishing communities of practice, it is good to take time to identify the inputs, because if we just do it spontaneously, we may not be able to identify our impact. So it is always good to define the theory of change. What do we want at the end of it all? I think that will actually help us a lot. Then more studies also need to be done on communities of practice in sub-Saharan Africa, and also the aspect of intersectionality has to also be taken into consideration. Contextual factors should be considered when setting up communities of practice. This is something very key, because we saw that communities of practice, they want in the global north, I mean, their inputs were actually different from those in the global south. And we also had contextual factors like political instability. For instance, in Cameroon now we have the political crisis going on, and which also affected, in fact, in some communities of practice, it affected it negatively, while for some it affected it positively. And so when communities of practice are being established, contextual factors need to be taken into consideration so that we don't just take that because maybe this is how it was done in the global south, it has to be the same, or in the global north, it has to be the same in the global south. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Glory.
Respond to questions because I mean, this short time could not enable me to be able to share everything that we have. Thank you.
Yeah, many thanks to Gloria and her team.